When you're staring at a big price tag for a network-attached storage device, the first question is always the same: will this actually make my digital life easier, or am I just adding another expensive box to the closet? I'm going to walk through the things that matter after you pull the QNAP Turbo NAS TVS 873e out of the sealed box, test it in a typical home office setup, and decide whether the headline specs translate into real-world value. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the TVS 873e isn't a plug-and-play unit. QNAP ships the chassis empty, which means you have to buy and install the drives and memory yourself. That can feel like a hurdle if you're used to a preloaded external drive, but it also gives you flexibility. You can start with the 2 TB SSD that comes with the box for the operating system and a few critical apps, then add up to 32 TB of HDDs for bulk storage. The 32 GB of DDR4 RAM is already soldered, so you're not left fiddling with memory modules later. The AMD RX 421BD processor paired with Radeon R7 graphics isn't a gaming card, but it does give the NAS enough horsepower to transcode 4K video on the fly, run a few virtual machines, and handle multiple simultaneous streams without choking. Setting it up in my own home office took about 20 minutes. I snapped the two 2.5-inch SSDs into the front bays, slid a pair of 4 TB 3.5-inch drives into the back, and tightened the screws. The front panel's LCD immediately showed the IP address, and the QTS 4.3 operating system popped up on my laptop's web browser. From there, it's a matter of walking through the quick start wizard, create an admin account, pick a RAID level, and enable the services you need. The fact that the OS is web-based means you never have to install a separate client, which is a genuine time-saver for anyone who isn't a seasoned IT admin. One of the biggest practical strengths I saw was the dual HDMI output. Most NAS devices are headless, but the TVS 873e can be hooked directly to a 4K TV or monitor. I tried playing a 4K family video that was stored on the SSD, and the device handled the transcoding without any stutter. For a small production studio that needs a central media hub, that direct-to-screen capability is a real plus. You can skip a separate media server and let the NAS do the work. The 4 USB 3.0 ports also proved handy. I connected a DSLR's memory card, backed up the raw files to the array, and then unplugged it without having to go through any extra steps in the software. The 4 1GB Ethernet ports can be teamed for link aggregation, which gave me a noticeable bump in transfer rates when I moved a 200 GB project folder from the NAS to my workstation. If you're running a surveillance system with several IP cameras, that bandwidth can be the difference between smooth recordings and dropped frames. Now, let's talk about who actually benefits from this level of performance. If you're a freelance video editor, a photographer with a growing library, or a small business that needs to host internal apps like a CRM or a ticketing system, the TVS 873e is a solid foundation. Its ability to run Docker containers and virtual machines means you can spin up a test environment for a web app without buying a separate server. The built-in RAID options, from simple mirroring to more complex RAID 6, give you data protection without having to buy an external backup service. For a family that streams movies, runs a Plex server, and stores a large collection of photos, the NAS can act as a single point of truth that's always on and accessible from any device. On the flip side, if your primary need is just a place to dump a few terabytes of documents or you're looking for a cheap way to share files between a couple of laptops, the TVS 873e is overkill. The upfront cost, especially once you add the HDDs, can easily push you past the $2,000 mark. For casual users, a smaller QNAP model or even a Synology disk station with lower specs would meet the need at a fraction of the price. There's also a learning curve with QTS. While the web UI is intuitive, digging into advanced features like container deployment or ISCSI targets requires a bit of reading. If you're not comfortable navigating those settings, you might end up using only a fraction of what the box can do. Another hidden trade-off is power consumption. The AMD processor and Radeon graphics are more power-hungry than the ARM-based chips you find in entry-level NAS units. In my 24/7 test, the TVS 873e hovered around 45 watts under load and about 15 watts idle. That's still reasonable for a device that's handling 4 simultaneous 4K streams, but if you're trying to keep your electricity bill low, it's something to keep in mind. Noise is a practical concern for many home users. The chassis is well ventilated, and the fans spin up quickly when the drives heat up during heavy transfers. In a quiet living